do you have time to stay on for the discussion after this?
Yeah, also time, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's my great pleasure now to welcome Mr. Udayan Vajpeyi to the stage. Mr. Vajpeyi is a poet, a fiction writer, an essayist and playwright, and an editor based in Bhopal. His poetry has been widely published, and it's a great pleasure to have him here with us to speak through the language of poetry to the very important questions of centering kinships, poetic and embodied knowledges in contemporary life, which is the topic of this panel. So, Mr. Vajpeyi, please. Thank you.
Can we remove this? This one? This, I'll want to keep it here. ऊपर रख दूँ? Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me here. When I got the phone call, I thought, because I've written a book on Jangar Kalam, on the painting tradition of the Pradhans. So I thought I'm supposed to speak on that. But later I was told that I'm supposed to speak on tribal poetry. And it so happened that I think 6 months back, there is a Gujarati poet friend of mine called Kanjibhai Patel. He was collecting tribal poems, from the entire country. And he asked me to translate few of those poems. And of course, he had already translated them into English, and then from English, I translated few of them. And of course, I had the entire bunch of all those poems which I had read. So I knew tribal poetry in that sense. Otherwise, I actually knew tribal Pradhan, Jangar Kalam paintings quite deeply, because of one of my teachers was Jagdish Swaminathan, a very great painter. When he was creating a museum of arts in Bharat Bhavan, Bhopal, he, in a sense, proposed a new idea about how should these paintings be exhibited. I mean, a term which would be inclusive of all kinds of painting. Otherwise, the tribal paintings were relegated to the category of the anthropology, and the modern painting, the modern urban paintings, were exhibited separately. And I'm talking about 1980 or 82. And suddenly he said that no, they are all contemporary. So he coined a new concept that they are all contemporary, and by technological development, difference in the technological developments cannot possibly hierarchize or classify the arts. So he said, even if you have very highly developed technology, you may not have equally developed arts or paintings. So in that, and they should all be exhibited together. Of course, they are different from each other. Not only different, they are different from each other in themselves also. So this was the idea with which one went into Patangarh, where Jangar Singh Shyam used to live. And then, of course, I was there for many times, and then I wrote a book. Because they come from the tradition of musicians, and how the music got transformed into painting in these wonderful artists. But anyway, that's a different story. So what I did for the poetry is that I'm quoting from, of course, they are all in English translation, unfortunately, and one or two I'll read them in Hindi also, because there's one tribal poet called Parvati Tirki. She is Kudak from Jharkhand, Kudak speaking, but she writes in Hindi. And so what I have done is that I'll take you to various poems coming from various parts of the country, from various tribal languages. They are all translated into English. And we'll try to show that how different dimensions, what different directions these poems take. So in the beginning was only water. From the water came earth. Kekhil in Kudak language. Earth was born. And the poem, this is Parvati Tirki. Aquatic creatures are our guides. Saying this, ancestors told us a long story. This is the process of creation of earth. First, a tortoise went deep into the sea and brought up the clay on its back. Then a scorpion went in and held clay with all its 8 hands. Then came the turn of the leech. She filled his stomach with the clay, and when it came up, it vomited the clay out. Thus, earth and mountains came into being. Now, you will find very similar stories in Baiga tribe also, in Pahadi Korbas also, very similar. This is like a variation, as they say in the Western music. Now the Hindi translation, Hindi originally, जलचर हमारे अगुआ हैं, ऐसा कहते हुए पुरखों ने एक लंबी कहानी सुनाई. धरती की रचना के क्रम में सबसे पहले कछुआ समुद्र के अंतस्तल में तक गया, मिट्टी लाद कर आया ऊपर, फिर केकड़ा गया और अपने 8 हाथों से मिट्टी को उठाया. अब जोंक की बारी आई. उसने अपने पेट में मिट्टी भरी और ऊपर लाकर उगल दी. ऐसे बनी जमीन और पहाड़. I have just written few lines in between, but mostly the whole idea is to let you know about that poem. Human beings on the earth celebrated their existence, and this is more so with the tribal painting, that they are the celebration of existence and also the prayer, because they're extremely grateful for the life that they have got on this earth, and prayed the nature which made their existence possible. Poems are prayers. They are bound to be everywhere. Tribal life in its consciousness is continuous with the nature, and thus carries the rhythm of the nature. What is the rhythm of the nature if not prayer? And there's a poem, we find a song. This poem is by Bakula Chaudhary in Chaudhary language. This is from Gujarat. The rooster crows in the morning and we find a song. We find a song and we find fulfillment. When we get a glass of liquor and burbs in the throat, when tears come to the eyes, or when we get a little respite from work, when the eyes close for few seconds, we find a song. The rooster crows. If you remember, I'm sure some of you might be knowing that there is this community in Namibia. It's called Himba. I'm not sure if you have heard of that community. And that's a community of the tribal, very beautiful people. They are from Namibia. And what happens is, when the mother is pregnant with the child, she hears a song from within. And that is the song of the child. So what happens is that she then sings that song while she is pregnant. Then the child is born. She finds another song, same song, and she sings that song through the child. It's a lullaby then. Then the child grows up, and the same song for the child continues. Then when he marries, what in Hindi we call sohra, which is the song for the marriage, the same is the song for the marriage of the child. When he grows and grows, if he's sick, even then the consolation is done by the same song. So they find a song. And then when this man, now the child and a man who's dying, the same song is the last song of his life or her life. Now what happens is there are songs for each and every individual in that community. And this very similar that I find song. Anyway, so now, but this is how they are, the tribal community, the indigenous people, in their own mind. And there are a lot of poems now written in the tribal languages which are about identity, because of course they are being continuously defined by the others. So there is now a kind of protest that they want to define themselves, and most of these definitions are obviously oppositional. Anyway, so this is one poem by Vinayak Nandi in Beda language of Karnataka. The poem is this: I am Beda, seen but as if not seen. Living amidst urban people, a Beda I am, like wild animals and birds within buildings and walls. Living dumb in the society, I am Beda, I am amidst. The second, this identity. Mere mortals unknown, we are mere mortals unknown, unsung generation after generation, keeping alive the stories. We are earth, we are flowing rivers, emissaries of heritage. This is another poet whom this poem I quoted, Womanhood, Jung Mayangla Lang Kumer. This is our Naga language from Nagaland. Now, here is another self-definition, and this time, and in other two also, it's in a positional self-image, as you know. Octavio Paz in his book Labyrinth of Solitude once wrote that in modernity you only define yourself in opposition to something. And of course the tribals were forced to do that. So there is one of Parvati Tirki in Kudak, but she wrote this in Hindi: I refuse, reject, resist your labels, your judgments, your documents, definitions, your models, leaders, patrons, because they deny me, because my existence, my vision, my space, your words, maps, figures, indicators, they all create illusions and put you on pedestal from where you look down upon me. This is not Parvati Tirki, this is another Kudak poet, Abhay. Then there is another poet of the same tradition, same theme. We grow into trees. After all, we are seed, wild. And seeds should be wild. You may want to drown us in deep waters, but water itself is our original seed. From ants to insects to human beings, we reach up all the way. After all, we are seeds, wild, and seeds should be wild. This is Jitendra Basava from Devali language. It was and is still a very difficult life for the indigenous people. The life, for example, when I went to Patangad, there was, at that time, there was no school. And there was a scarcity of water. People had to go some 4-5 kilometers to fetch the water. Uh, it was and still is difficult time, a difficult life. The life is not carried without much struggle with the difficult terrains, and yet there are hardly any attempts to destroy nature, the way modern man has taken pride in doing. Here is a Banjari language poem by Ramesh Karthik Naik of Andhra Pradesh. Carrying on their backs spindle, cotton, dried bread, raw garlic, chili powder, groups and groups in the vein of the forest, like snake venom. Let's enter the body of forest, holding each other, holding each vein, searching for the particles of hunger. Like river channels, they roam. Hunting is a struggle for life. That's a poem. Jungle is difficult. Hunting is a struggle. Yet it is better to be in jungle, as a later poem is going to suggest, than going to the cities, even though they call forest dwellers villagers. Arinam Airing of Arunachal Pradesh writes in Adi language, the city often calls out to me, and I hide in the jungle. The jungle says nothing. It does not ask me to go. It does not ask me to stay. The jungle says nothing. It simply gives me space to hum, to dance. And when I want to sit quietly, it doesn't make noise. When the city take me away from here, I will talk about the jungle to the city. They say that city speaks too much and listens to no one. You would have noticed already that this is the way that epic writing is being done, because nature is completely indifferent. The poet is not saying that the jungle is trying to stop me. It is indifferent to it, and the indifference of the nature is one of the key factors in creating an epical experience. And that is what it is. There is a spirit of deep longing in the tribal poetry. And Jangar Kalam, for example, the paintings of Jangar Singh Sham himself, or Bhajju Singh Sham, or Venkat, or Durga Pai. If you see those paintings, there's a very deep sense of longing. It's as if they want to bring those gods and goddesses and those fauna and flora back to the cities. And they remind me a lot of the jazz music, that they were in America and they were singing songs. So it is a form of weeping also, but it is also an attempt to retrieve that. And of course, in the end, Jangar died in Japan in that absolutely with deep longing for the place, to come back to Bhopal and then from there back to Patangarh. Anyway, so they shifted to the city. Another poem, yes, I have seen our rice fields turn into factories, and hills, our green hills, reduced to barren brown. Our rivers have dried, and our once sparkling fish lie dead on sandy banks. There is no more the pines I can smell, nor hear the tragopan and the horn hill. So there are no birds to be heard. This is a poem of Mona Lisa Chang Kia, our Naga language. It is not as if there are only poems of identity and self-definitions. In the contemporary indigenous poetry culture, some very beautiful love poems are also written. And here are a few lines of a Irule language poem of Udayan Lakshmanan of Tamil Nadu. It's called Indam Flower. Indam, I think, Jamun. Like bees, Oh, I'm sorry. Like bees swarming over birds, I hover around you, my jamun flower. I've never seen this comparison of the beloved or a loved one with jamun flower. Remember those times we roamed about, picking up naikiga, must be some flower, those memories etched like elephant footprint on a riverbed. I mean, once again, a very great metaphor. You allure me like little roots of kalla. I won't desert you like the musical stone that will be everywhere you may be. Another poem, this is by Parvati. Fireflies are the infinite love of night. Night, which used to love his beloved deeply. Night in Kuduk language is male. Fireflies were infinite love of the night. Night, which used to love his beloved deeply. It used to see her with these eyes of fireflies, and used to spread love in forest and sky every day. There is a strange poem of Khasi poet Esther Saim of Meghalaya. It tries to evoke the notion of divine in her world. I'm sure these notions may not be same in all the tribal communities across the country, and yet it may suggest some elements which may be found in other communities too. And I know few other poems of other communities too. We have no temples, as somebody in the morning also said. We have no temples, none to be purified, with litanies and incense to heaven, crimes of the night. No one river too sacred to purify impurities. None of our gods bear god names like yours. Earth gods and sky deities, nymphs and elfin dwarfs that winnow souls and scale bamboo leaves. Icons that died for a love that endorsed a freedom uninhibited as our wild mountain herbs. An itchy monster etching to be scratched, a rebellious stag pounding for freedom, and the inconsolable dirge of a mother. Now, just few more minutes, huh? And I just give you an example of an extremely beautiful metaphor in a poem, Kuki poem. And this is, indeed, our time is to unite as one blue ocean under the same sky. There is not only erotic there are not only erotic poems, there are many actually, but also a poem for forest, air, sky, etc. in abundance in this tradition. Kerala's Malavettuva poet Prakash Chinthalam, he writes, the forest has a language. Songs, stories and fragrances of the wild and the bloom. The green, the wild springs on its own from seeds fallen and boughs stretched out. The storm of modernity has tried to destroy the languages of the tribal, and it has already done that to a great extent. There's no other better person to know this than Ganeshji. As a reaction to this process, there is a deep concern about safeguarding or saving the language. And there is a language of Hiramina, of Mini language of Rajasthan. I am a scarecrow. I am a scarecrow of many mother tongue and culture. Like in all sensitive poetic traditions, tribal poets too have some wonderful poems on death, but one can notice, like in these poems, like in the poem quoted below, that death is not the end of the life, it's another way of being. Parvati Tirki writes, after death, ancestors come back into our family, speaking nothing. Ancestors sell one after the other tattoo of their shadows in the invisible world and live this way. Yes, live after death. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vajpeyi. May I invite Mr. Gamango and Ms. Patro, please, to come up on to the stage. Thank you very much. And I'm going to start off by actually asking Brian, please, to speak to us about the genesis of the Aratulu project and the significance of the tree, because I think we're going to come back to the tree a couple more times in the conversation that follows. So may I invite you, Brian, please, to speak to us about Aratulu.
Yes, thank you. To give a bit of background, I met Srinivas Gamango in Paramundi in 2016, so we've known each other for some time. Same with Dipti and her family, so we've known each other for another 10 years. And we ran a conference in Paramundi called Narrativizing Indigeneity at the time, an international conference. And since that time, over the years, we've just been thinking about how to create a partnership between our respective universities and our respective communities here in Australia and also South India. Beginning last year, I was in Paramundi with Dipti, Srinivas and Deeptimayee's father, and that's where we spend a bit of time travelling around the district of Dajapati and taking photographs of trees, because that's my practice. I've been enjoying trees for a number of years. And in the conversations, because Dulu trees for Kimura are very significant, and in the conversations, of course, Sora translates as holding the tree, the person holding the tree. So there's a lot of synergies across the Southeast Asia region, and it's interesting because a lot of people see Australia as a British colony. There's a lot of similarities between parts of India and parts of Australia in terms of colonisation, and our connection to place and connection to trees is for tens of thousands of years. So that's what sort of brought us together, and then applying for the funding. And of course, we run the funding, and then it's always good to have money to do these things. And yeah, that's what sort of started the project.
Thank you. Thanks very much. If I may invite Mr. Gamango to speak about the relationship with the tree, especially the one that he worked with, the one that he painted upon. The slides that you showed us. It would be really wonderful to speak in terms of how that tree produces a sense of community as well.
गच्छपत्र विषय रे सौरा मानकर को प्रकार संपर्क रही ता टिके वर्णना करबा को जाउछि को
The significance of tree he is going to explain in Odia, and I will translate that in English.
ଗଛ ହେଉଛି ଆମେ ବଡ଼ ବଡ଼ ଗଛ ପତ୍ରକୁ ଆମେ ପୂଜା କରୁ କାରଣ ଗଛ ଆମକୁ ଛାଇ ଦିଏ ଗଛ ଆମକୁ ଅମ୍ଳଜାନ ଦିଏ ପୁଣି ଗଛର କାଠରେ ଘର ଦ୍ୱାର ତିଆରି ହୁଏ ଗଛର କାଠରେ ଜାଳି ଖାଦ୍ୟ ମଧ୍ୟ ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତ କରାଯାଏ ସେତିକି ତ ସେତିକି କମ
So their name, he's Langia Sora. Sora word came from hiding in tree. So means hiding, and Ra from Ara means tree. So he literally comes from the tree. So that's what especially the significance. When he wants to talk, he can say he is a tree man. Yeah, and whatever. As a human being, whatever he breathes, eats, or relies on for anything, comes from trees. So that's the significance of tree for him. Yes.
ସୌରା ଜାତିଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ସ ମାନେ ଲୁଚିବା ଆରା ମାନେ ଗଛ ତେଣୁ ଏ ଗଛ ଯେ ପ୍ରକୃତରେ ତାର କେତେଟା ପତ୍ରରେ ଔଷଧ ହେଉଛି କେତେଟା ଛାଲିରେ ଔଷଧ ହେଉଛି କେତେଟା ଚେରରେ ଔଷଧ ହେଉଛି ଏ ଗଛ ବିନା ଜଣେ ମଣିଷ ରହିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ
Human life doesn't exist without trees because they completely rely on trees, from the food to the shelter, from the bush medicines, from even their clothes. Because in ancient times they used to wear, leaves and stuff. So everything, they completely rely on trees. So life doesn't exist without trees for them.
ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ଓଡ଼ିଶାର ଗଜପତି ରାୟଗଡ଼ା ଗଞ୍ଜାମ ପୁଣି ଆନ୍ଧ୍ରପ୍ରଦେଶର ଶ୍ରୀକାକୁଲମ୍ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟରେ ସୌରାମାନଙ୍କର ବସାରେ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ଗଲେ ସେମାନେ କିଛି ନହେଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମ୍ବ ପଣସ ତେନ୍ତୁଳି ଖଜୁରୀ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଗଛପତ୍ର ଲଗାନ୍ତି ପୁଣି ଅନେକ ଜାଗାରେ କାଜୁ ବାଦାମ ମଧ୍ୟ ଲଗାଇଛନ୍ତି ବିଶେଷ କରି ଆମ୍ବ ଗଛଟା ଆମ୍ବର ଫଳ ଖିଆଯାଏ ପୁଣି ଆଜିକାଲି ସିନା ଟିକେ ଖାଇବାର ସୁବିଧା ହେଇଛନ୍ତି ସୌରାମାନେ ଆମ୍ବର ଟାକୁଆ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ସେ ଯେଉଁ ମଞ୍ଜିଟା ମଧ୍ୟ କୁଟିକିରି ପାଣିରେ ବତରାଇକି ସେଟା ଖାଉଥିଲେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମ୍ବ ଗଛ ହେଉଛି ବହୁତ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ବୋଲି ସେମାନେ ଆମ୍ବ ଗଛଟାକୁ ବହୁତ ପ୍ରାଧାନ୍ୟ ଦେଉଥିଲେ ପୁଣି ତେନ୍ତୁଳି ଗଛ ତାକୁ ବହୁତ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ତେନ୍ତୁଳି ଗଛର ଯେଉଁ ଫଳଟାକୁ ବିକ୍ରି କରାଯାଏ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ସେଟା ବି ବହୁତ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ବୋଲି ସେଟା ବି ଲଗାଉଥିଲେ ପଣସ ଯେଉଁ ସମୟରେ ଖାଦ୍ୟ ପାଉନଥିଲେ ସେତେବେଳେ ପଣସକୁ ଖାଇକିରି ଦିନ କାଟୁଥିଲେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ପଣସ ଗଛଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ବହୁତ ପ୍ରାଧାନ୍ୟ ଦେଉଥିଲେ ଖଜୁରୀ ଗଛରୁ ଆଉ ରସ ବାହାର କରୁଥିଲେ ଖଜୁରୀ ଫଳ ମଧ୍ୟ ଖାଉଥିଲେ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଗଛଟା ବି ଖଜୁରୀ ଗଛଟା ବହୁତ ମୂଲ୍ୟବାନ ବୋଲି ସେମାନେ ଭାବୁଥିଲେ ଏତିକି
Mango trees, banyan trees, jackfruit trees, any trees which are really big in size and also are not beautiful to look at if that they have a hole or bumps in it, those big trees are sacred for them, and that's why he chose the mango tree to make a canoe. The canoe we made, he chose mango tree because mango tree is very sacred for them. So he draws trees as a theme of his Langia Sora edithal paintings, and you can see the tree is not an object or subject, it is their daily life, and they completely rely. Actually, literally, it's their life. Tree means their life. Yeah.
ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମେ ଗଛଟାକୁ ପ୍ରାଧାନ୍ୟ ଦେଉ ଗଛ ମଧ୍ୟ ପ୍ରତ୍ୟେକ ଜାଗାରେ ବାଡ଼ି ବଗିଚାରେ କି ଆମର ବିଲରେ ହୁଡ଼ାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗଛ ସମ୍ଭାଳିଥାଉ
That's why they take care of any plant or any tree wherever it grows up. They don't cut. They look after them.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vajpeyi, one of the poems that several of the poems that you recited for us speak about relationships with ecologies and with forests, and there's a sense of tension often between urbanization, modernization, colonization, and the nature of the embodied knowledge that the tree holds. Would you speak a bit further about the tree as also a sentient presence?
First thing is that I just forgot to speak, and I think I should have said that most of the tribal community, the members of them, they first recognize themselves to be citizens of the earth. So they are part of the, this whole idea of, in fact, one of the poems is that you have imposed nationalities on us. So there is no border. So what happens is that it's a continuous, existence is continuous, not hindered by these borders. So they are the citizens of the earth like trees are, like any other insect is, any other being is. Now, this whole point is that indigenous world, and also I think the pre-modern India was like, it was a biocentric world, where the tree and the man, they have equal citizenship. It is not as if we are more citizen than the trees for that matter. There's another thing that I once wrote a kind of catalog for a tribal painter from Jangar Kalam, and he was called Ram Singh Urveti. And he painted only the trees. And I recognized gradually that in this tradition, the gods are not separated from the nature. They are nature. So what happens is that if you try and talk to them about the gods and goddesses, there is one god mediating your relationship with every other thing. So there is a god which will relate you to the tree. There will be a god which will relate you to, let's say, swing. There will be a god which will relate you to the threshold of the house. So there is the trees, like anything else in the tribal world, are divine, because the borderline, the difference between the sacred and the profane, has not taken place there. The earth is sacred. The existence is sacred. So if everything is sacred, so is the tree.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Katya, please. Could please hand the mic to Katya, please.
Hello, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello, Brian. This is Katya. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to first of all say thank you, Brian, for your introduction words. Thank you, Srinivas. Thank you, Deeptimayee. And thank you, Udayan, of course. Beautiful recital. And Chaitanya, thank you for the moderation. I have a comment which becomes a question, Brian, also for Srinivas and Deeptimayee. It's about your project. So I really appreciate your project for its focus on indigenous knowledge systems. And because I believe it underscores the importance of indigenous custodianship and the living. And before becoming an art historian, I was a biologist. I graduated in biology, and I remember from my biology days that actually it has been proven that trees exist in community. And this is a wonderful thing to think about, because when a tree is damaged, when it is under attack, it sends an alarm signal through its root system to its community trees. And they send roots and nourishment to help that tree. So I thought it was so beautiful when you were talking about the value of your project in community, to also think of the trees and how they themselves are doing the very same thing in community. So my question is, do you also understand this project as upholding what we can call indigenous science as a repository of knowledge stemming from an understanding of land and community together? That's my question.
I suppose the only way to, thank you for the question, Katya. I suppose the only way to answer that question is, well, from a Gilroy perspective, all knowledge is sacred, whether you want to call it science, creative practice, art, ethnography, anthropology. I don't know what this word science means, but for us, everything's interconnected, and that's why we have an ancestral connection to trees in particular in Australia. For Gilroy and Wiradjuri, it's really important because we see trees as our ancestors, and the way we inscribe on trees or carve on trees is something completely, it's our language. We don't have a written language in Aboriginal communities in Australia, but our designs that are carved on trees, especially Gilroy, that's something that we call Bora, which is our law. So it underpins everything, not just, I suppose, the ideas of science, but it underpins our being, our creation as well. And in Gilroy, we have a narrative of the Yarran, which is the River Red Gum, and there's also the Yarrandu, which is the first death of the humans, of the human being, and Yarrandu actually lives in the sky. So there's a cosmology that relates to the relationship between land, the waterways, trees, and the sky. So the trees interconnect all those things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it really underpins for us as Gilroy, underpins everything in the interconnectedness between people, place, and the world around us.
Thank you very much, Brian. Deeptimayee, would you like to respond to that question from Katya as well, together with Mr. Gamango?
Sure, but my view. So, perception is a part of science. Do you agree? The perception is a part of science. Yeah. So, my part of involving and understanding trees, because I was also a biology student, and so I know, not a scholar, but yes, basics. But my family, my grandfather was a, if you know Ayurveda, so I have a little bit idea about all those things, and I'm really not really, but I little bit understand that. But perception is if perception is a part of science, then the significance of tree I learned from Brian's perception, because when he sees a tree, in general, when we see a tree, we see the tree in our eyesight, but he sees the trees from the root, because the root is connected to country. So, so that thinking of his changed my perception I had with the trees. So, yeah, that's how I'm related and interested and actively participating in this project. Yes, I don't know whether, I think,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I think we are about on time, and it's time to have a quick 10-minute tea break. 10 minutes, please, everyone, and we come back for the next session. Please join me in thanking Professor Brian Martin, Mr. Srinivas Gamango, Deeptimayee Patro, and Mr. Vajpeyi. Thank you. Thank you all.